I just happened to wake up really early one morning, checked my email, saw it, freaked out a little bit.
Founder of Silver Isle, Sri Lanka's first online wedding registry.
Forbes 30 under 30. That's massive.
I really thought I wanted to stay in California. Just loved the life. I was like, I'm gonna make it like how it is in San Francisco. That didn't work out, but I think I realized I didn't love doing a 9 to 5. The moment you're assertive, it tends to be misconstrued that you're kind of being a little.
But then is that an energy that actually works?
That's the thing. Sri Lanka seemed like an entrepreneur's playground. When I was 15, I did a clothing line.
What was it called? Have you ever screwed up?
Oh yeah, all the time. I just don't like having difficult conversations. Any person working in the service industry will probably agree that it does feel like a thankless job. And I think that made me complacent. If you spend 2 years being in a rut, when you don't have the motivation, it's kind of that discipline that's going to make you do the things you need to do day in day. When my mom and he got married, they received multiple tea sets, rice cookers.
Why is it called Survival?
So when we first started,
Dude, welcome to the podcast.
hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Of course.
And first off, congratulations on your huge victory on
Thank you.
making it to Asia's Forbes 30 under 30 list.
Thank you.
That's massive. How did you find out? What was the...
I had an idea it could happen because in January I got an email saying that I was shortlisted, so they wanted more details, photographs, etc. Having said that, they were also just like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The list is dropping in May. You'll know then if you made it. So I was like, okay, cool. And then you kind of just forget about it.
Yeah.
And then I just happened to wake up really early for work last week one morning. Checked my email, saw it, freaked out a little bit. My husband had just woken up. My dog was still sleeping. They both freaked out a little bit when I freaked out. But yeah, that's how I found out. And it was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, and you've been here. After college, you came back to Sri Lanka.
Yes, I was in the US and I went to London and then I moved right back.
Okay. And you've been here since?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you choose to come back?
Because when I was at Berkeley, I really thought I wanted to stay in California. Loved California, loved my friends, just loved the life there.
Right.
And then during the summer of junior year, I interned at a branding agency in San Francisco, called Landor, and it was my dream internship. It was honestly like a dream come true. And I really did enjoy it. But I think I realized I didn't love doing a 9 to 5. And that wasn't for me. And I think I realized at that point I wanted to start my own business. Didn't know what it was or what it would be, but just I knew that was kind of the direction I wanted to go in.
Yeah.
And then, that's just not feasible in the US. Visa reasons, the capital you need to start a business there is kind of massive. And then on the flip side, Sri Lanka kind of seemed like an entrepreneur's playground because there are just so many things that aren't being done, so much potential, so many cool ideas you can bring in. So at that time, I kind of knew I was going to come back. My parents were very happy about it because I'm an only child. My dad specifically. So yeah, once I figured that out, I was like, okay, cool. Wanted to finish my master's off as well.
Right.
Just had a gut feeling that if I were to come back, going back for a master's, it just might not pan out. So then I applied to Imperial off the whim, by the way, just like on a random Monday, and submitted my application on a Wednesday. Yeah. And then that happened. So I went to London. It was a 1-year master's, finished up, and then moved back home.
Are you a good student?
Yeah, I'm a good student.
Like really good?
Yeah.
Or, I could tell. I could tell that you're very studious. That is good.
I mean, when I was at school, I did my final years at OSC, the Overseas School of Colombo. Sure. I mean, I was a pretty good student, but not amazing. My idea of studying back in the day was kind of just reading the textbook and then just going. And, I did fine. And then my first midterm I ever did at Berkeley, I just studied like how I always did, literally just read the textbook once and went in.
Yeah.
Didn't pan out very well.
Yeah.
Had massive imposter syndrome, thought I was stupid, thought I was going to flunk out of Berkeley. But then I just kind of actually taught myself how to actually study and how to actually learn. And after like I got the hang of that, things were pretty good.
That's awesome. And so you came back to Sri Lanka after that. And then what was your process like to getting to start your own business?
I worked at Valuable One for about 6 months.
Okay.
And while I was there, I was kind of just, like playing around with different ideas and came across the concept of an online wedding registry, which to me, it made sense immediately because
Right.
I was already familiar with wedding registries, having been in the US.
Nice.
So it made sense that they make everything online. You get multiple vendors in one platform. It's a fully consolidated model. And I actually just happened to mention it to my dad, who then, he loved the idea because when my mom and he got married, they received multiple tea sets, multiple
Sweet.
rice cookers, all these kind of things that, you just don't need more than one off. So I think he immediately saw the use in it and kind of a gap it could fill. And that's really how Silver Isle initially came about.
That's amazing. So did you have any background with like wedding registries at all? Like,
no.
But you've attended a lot of weddings.
Honestly, at that time, not a whole lot. Yeah.
Wow.
Like nothing compared to other people living in Sri Lanka.
Right. But you saw that Sri Lanka just needed it. It was just
I mean, it was just honestly a very pragmatic solution because couples getting married, look, things are very expensive now. You only want the things you want. Everyone has different taste preferences.
Yep.
What you like, I might not. What I like, you might not. So, it was just a very pragmatic solution to kind of a problem that existed.
Yeah.
Couples would make an account for free and add anything they want from their favorite vendors all in one click. It's super convenient for their wedding guests because they don't have to go to the store anymore. They don't need to actually even think what would the couple want. They just make their purchase in 2 clicks and then we handle all the logistics. So I don't know. I think that's kind of why it worked. It was convenient. Yeah, it was easy.
Solving problems that a lot of couples go through. I wish I knew that existed. Well, I don't think it existed at the time that I got married. But you mentioned a 9 to 5 didn't work for you.
No.
Now that you have your own business, what are your hours?
Honestly, varies completely. Some days are just like all day. And others sometimes aren't. It really just kind of depends on the day. It depends on how strong my team is at any one point, because obviously there are fluctuations that take place. It has gotten a bit easier, but now we're also in the middle of expansion, so it's gotten really busy again. So it goes through its ebbs and flows, but I always have my phone on me, even if I'm like on any vacation. Even on the morning of my wedding, I was replying messages. So
I love that.
It's not that I didn't like a 9 to 5. I just didn't like being told where I had to be and what I had to do.
That's
I just liked answering to myself.
I love that. It's an entrepreneur spirit. And I think we all have gone through that moment of like, screw the 9 to 5, and then you finally like start your own thing, and then you're fully invested in it, right? It takes it's your new baby. What were the preconceived notions that you had of starting your own business that were quickly put to rest after you started it?
I think honestly the first one was I had this idea of the work culture I wanted. I was like, I'm going to make it like how it is in San Francisco. super flexible, just, very San Francisco work culture. That didn't work out. People would just come into work at 10:30, leave at 3, work wasn't getting done. So I very quickly realized that there's a reason no one else does that in Sri Lanka. And also at the start, I was hiring young people because I wanted this energy. Didn't work out because younger people obviously tend to move around. So I then had to kind of gear it more towards being a Sri Lankan, like a Sri Lankan company.
Absolutely. It's so funny. I was just talking about, and my wife and I, we tend to travel back and forth. Obviously we have companies here and in the US, and then you have these two different systems, right? Like, obviously when you work in the US or anywhere else in the world, that already has an established economy, it's like, it's binary. It's like, exactly. You do this, you get this. You can scale up really fast. You can crash really fast. It's binary. You have to keep track of it. I like to think of Sri Lanka as like an ebb and flow. It's like you have to kind of flow with that energy of that day.
Yeah, you completely do.
Yeah. What have you adopted as you had started to change with your mindset on the work front? What would you say you adopted in terms of like how to improve your business, how to keep it more efficient?
I think in terms of efficiency, honestly, I've just had to be just a lot tougher with my vendors, even with my staff. Just a lot more affirmative and not affirmative, assertive.
Yes.
And I'm using that word instead of the B word because women, like, the moment you're assertive, it tends to be misconstrued.
Right.
That you're kind of being a little bitchy.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's something I've had to really adopt. Because unfortunately, I mean, we work with some really amazing vendors, and most of them are very reliable, consistent, their quality is great, they're easy to work with. But honestly, you get a whole bunch who we've since had to let go of, or, just figure out different ways to work. And they don't respect punctuality, they don't respect consistency, they don't, So I think I've had to just become so much tougher because of that in order to make sure that things run efficiently. But also, I mean, there are so many like amazing people that we work with, from our team to the drivers to a lot of the vendors. So it's also been really rewarding in that way.
Yeah. What is, I personally have heard this before as well, is that women in the workplace shouldn't be like that. Or if they are kind of like assertive, like you said, the word bitchy is there. But then is that an energy that actually works? Like, that is an energy that actually works. So why can't it be a norm?
I think, it does work. That's the thing. I think a lot of people here respond to that energy, unfortunately. I wish that wasn't the case. But that's not to say everyone's like that. I mean, I would say I have so many vendors I work with and so many team members who get my more authentic energy, so to say, where I don't feel the need to be necessarily assertive or anything like that. But unfortunately, there is like a whole bunch of people that only kind of respond when you are being that tough. I think that's just a societal thing, I'm assuming.
And I think it's almost like anywhere else in the world, right? You have to be able to, like you said, ebb and flow. It depends on what you get at the end of the day from the people that you're working with.
Exactly.
What is your proudest moment so far with starting your own business?
I mean, I think the Forbes one was
pretty up there.
that one was that's probably the best one so far. Just because it was rewarding, in the sense that, for years and years you put in so much energy. It's a day in day out grind. Any person working in the service industry will probably agree that it does feel like a thankless job sometimes, and sometimes it can feel like a thankless job. So I think it does feel validating to be recognized for the work you've done and for all the years you put into it.
That's amazing and well deserved. I do see that. I mean, your brand has circulated for a while now. I mean, the word is thrown out. So Silver Isle. Why is it called Silver Isle?
So when we first started,
Yeah.
it was only meant to be an online wedding registry. The gifting site actually emerged during the first lockdown because weddings were cancelled indefinitely. And honestly, I wish I had a better story, but it was like my dad and I were trying to brainstorm names, and we wanted the wedding part in it somehow, but we also wanted to bring in the technology part in somehow,
Right.
because it is a tech-based platform.
Yeah.
And honestly, the truth is, all the good URLs were taken because we wanted a .com, like we didn't want a .lk. Because
what was the potential?
I think the main one was just meant to be called the Isle. That was what we wanted.
Yeah.
But every single good .com was taken. And we didn't want like a hyphenated thing in the middle.
Yeah.
So that's honestly how it came about. It's like, I think it's a very realistic story. It's
100%.
nothing.
I know, but you think about it, like how many names formed because of an availability of a
exactly.
.com or a .net
So
or a
even on our initial designs, it was always called the Isle. That was, and now it's Silver Isle.
I love it. It's catchy and it sticks. Were you married when you started your business?
No, I met my husband literally 2 weeks after I moved back to Sri Lanka.
Okay.
And and he's been with me throughout the entire process.
I love that. How is you as a businesswoman successful at what you do? How does that work with your marriage? How do you balance that life out?
I've always been very ambitious, and I've always been very vocal about that. And he's also never wanted to be with anyone who doesn't have their own thing going on. I don't think he, just like we aligned very well on that from the onset. And he's been incredibly supportive because he's a lot more low-key of a person. He likes to be more behind the scenes. So I think it kind of like we balance each other out quite well, but he's been extremely supportive throughout. They do say
opposites attract, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're certainly different. But I wouldn't say we're opposites, but he is very content with, he doesn't like any attention. He doesn't, he would never do, I think, a podcast or an interview or anything like that. He just likes to work and just grind. And so it works
out. I do think that's a great combination. It's the same with my wife and I've got the retriever energy.
Yeah.
And then she likes to be like, okay, let's get her stuff done. Yeah. And it's a great balance. It's a great connection. The reason I asked that is because at a very young age, you're obviously, I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? You can you are influencing the youth right now with your achievement and the way you're doing things.
That feels so weird.
No, I know it doesn't feel weird.
Yeah, it does.
Because being a success at what you do, I mean, this is you. This is what you've done. You've achieved this, and I feel like it's a great reference point for the youth of Sri Lanka. Do you feel like there's anything that the youth can do to kind of follow in those footsteps that you've taken?
Honestly, I think kind of like the main thing would be, and I really do have to give a lot of credit to my parents and my husband for this, is that I've always kind of done things my own way. I've always thought, not that I was in any way trying to actively be different, but I've always just, my thinking has always been slightly maybe different, or maybe a little bit more on the creative side. I've always dressed a certain way, talked a certain way, and I'm lucky that both my parents and my husband have always been very supportive of that, and they've never tried to make me conform to being one, tried to make me be someone I'm not.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of been my biggest strength. And I think it kind of shows, like, for example, when I applied to Berkeley, I had decided to do, when I was 15, I did a clothing line, which honestly,
What was it called?
It was called Yanix.
Ooh,
Oh,
I
so
like that.
cringy.
No, it's not. It's that's
It's actually trademarked. My dad trademarked it, like, back in the day.
Would it ever make a comeback?
Definitely not under that name, though.
I think it's cool. Okay.
I don't know. I think it's a bit self-absorbed now. So, like, again, the reason I did that was at OSC, when we were in grade 10, we had to do a thing called a personal project, and it could be anything we wanted to do. And a lot of the other kids were doing either like an essay or like a song or something, but I kind of always wanted to do something special, and my parents really encouraged that. So I think even at the point of applying to Berkeley, that was one thing that kind of helped differentiate my application from maybe a few others.
Right.
And I suppose even with getting certain accolades like the Forbes, they really do respond well to people who are doing something new and innovative and different. And I don't think I would be able to do something new, innovative, and different if I wasn't also allowed to be myself and kind of think my own thoughts and just do things my own way. So in that sense, I have to really, I'm grateful.
Yeah, what you've created is a blueprint. I would like to think that it's a blueprint, because anytime we see a Sri Lankan achieve something that you don't really see Sri Lankans achieving quite often, that's a blueprint from that person. If you listen to that person, hear their story, there's something from it that you can draw from. And I do think it's for a nation. So anytime, like, I see whether it's Yvonne David or whether I see, whoever it is that's achieving something at the top at such a young age, we can draw from that. And I think that's what you're doing. So if I was to ask you what advice or top 3 points that you would want to give to young women in Sri Lanka that are here right now, that are thinking, oh, I need to leave to another country, because that's the narrative, right? The tragedy was that, the past couple of years, we've had so much people just immigrating to other countries and not seeing the potential that you see here. What sort of advice would you give them?
I mean, honestly, I would say to create a company, you don't actually need a ton of funding. I did mine from a very, very, very small amount, and then I bootstrapped the entire thing. So you don't need a huge amount of resources. You just need to pick something, whatever it might be. And, it doesn't even have to be a completely novel concept. It doesn't even have to be that innovative. It can be something that someone else is doing, but you're just doing so much better.
Nice.
And truthfully, I think that's an easier route, even with the gifting side of the business took off so much faster than the wedding registry, because that part wasn't too innovative. It's just that we were doing something others were doing, but I think at a better level. So I would say number one is you actually it's not that hard to really set up a business. Running the business is more difficult, but I think you don't need a ton of resources or a ton of funding to set something good up. I would say number two is sort of what I was saying before, which is your individuality is your strength. So play on that. And I would say number three would be who you marry or who your partner is very important. They can either really help propel you or they can hold you back. Or even if you're still doing it all yourself, if the energy you're getting isn't amazing from them, it won't make that journey as pleasant as it could be. So I'd say pick your partner carefully.
That's interesting. It almost sounds like that's all you need to succeed. Because Sri Lanka, in Sri Lanka, like you were saying, one of the biggest issues that people face is that they just don't have a framework. And if would they wanted to do something today, like what sort of mindset should they be adopting?
Oh, like the mindset should be you're hungry, you want to work, you want to grind, because the day in, day out isn't glamorous at all. Like this is the most glamorous it's gonna get. And
It's a little podcast studio. Yeah.
and like that
I love
will happen maybe once
Yeah.
every like 3-4 years, if
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm here speaking to you after 5 years of grinding it day in day out.
Wow.
The day to day is not glamorous at all. You're probably doing the same thing over and over again. um it's just tedious, and it requires a lot of discipline, and I think you have to be hungry, you have to want to work. But I think discipline might even be more important, because when you don't have the motivation, it's kind of that discipline that's going to make you do the things you need to do day in, day out.
Have you learned to love this process?
Learning to. No, I mean, look, it's been hard because of everything Sri Lanka has gone through, especially the Aragalaya. Like during that time, prices were just fluctuating like crazy. It was impossible to even, it was really just, running a business is hard in general. And then when you have all these obstacles in front of you, it just makes it so much harder. And then it makes you question, is it me who's not good enough, or is it the environment that isn't being conducive to growing a business? So you do question a lot of things. So I'm learning to love it still.
Do you think Sri Lanka is a good training ground for you to try something so that you can take it to scale somewhere else?
Yeah, that was always the plan. Because Sri Lanka is small, right? There's only so much. I mean, if you really want to grow a company and create a big company, it's a small market, especially in the segment I'm in, which is, it's a niche product. It's a niche offering. So it's not a mass market product. So anyway, you're playing with a very small pool. So the plan was always to take it overseas.
Amazing. I was gonna ask you what's next for you.
We are expanding slowly into the Middle East.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's a work in progress.
I love that. And if you were to, would you ever go back to the US, since like that's where you went to school?
I mean, no, it doesn't make sense. My husband's work is in Sri Lanka. My work is in Sri Lanka. I mean, we're going to be visiting at the end of the year, but apart from that, no big plans to move.
Gotcha. The Middle East is very interesting because it seems that everyone has their eyes fixed on the Middle East.
Yeah.
What made you? Why strategically the Middle East for now? For you?
For the kind of offering we have, which is a more luxury-based offering, it just kind of fits in very well to the interests and likes of people living in the Middle East. And also, I wanted to move to a country where kind of the e-commerce infrastructure and the infrastructure was more developed, because it's very hard doing it in Sri Lanka, because we're still, that e-commerce infrastructure is still developing. It's not, Uber Eats and Pick Me work really well in terms of it's very automated, but unfortunately, I thought when I made the registry that it'll be this fully automated thing, but there's still so much human intervention that's needed. We constantly have to like message vendors, follow up with vendors. So I knew if I am expanding, I want to go into a more mature market.
Have you ever screwed up?
Oh yeah, all the time. Like so much. I can't even, if you ask me, tell me one instance, I can't, because I've made so many mistakes.
How do you learn from them?
Sometimes I actually don't even realize I'm making a mistake. So by the time I learn from it, it's maybe years later. I think an area I was messing up on earlier was pricing. I wasn't doing enough research. I wasn't good enough at negotiating with the vendors. I just don't like having difficult conversations. Don't love talking about money. So I was kind of avoiding some of those. And that was a mistake that took me a long time. It was actually my husband who kept saying, you have to be tougher, you have to be tougher. So then again, with time, you slowly start making those corrections. But it took me a while.
Took a minute. I love that. Would you change anything from your journey?
Yes, I do think the last 2 years I got quite complacent.
Mm.
And it's because I do very well when I have a goal. If you tell me you need to expand into this country, I'll be like, okay, cool, I'll do it. But I didn't have a goal for a while. I think, honestly, you kind of just get fed up as well of running a business when things like that regularly happen. And it's just, when it's like one obstacle after the next, it kind of takes a lot out of you.
Yeah.
And I think that made me complacent. It demotivated me, didn't really have a clear goal in sight. So I do feel like I spent 2 years kind of being stagnant, being in a rut. So I do wish I was more proactive.
That's fair. Well, to be honest, I don't think not many countries go through what Sri Lanka
that's
goes
true.
through. I think we're always kept on our toes.
Yeah.
When it comes to your next step with Silver, and you guys just don't do weddings, you also do gift.
So we have 2 services.
Right. Tell me about that. What do you guys do?
One is the online wedding gift registry. So if you're getting married, you make a registry with us, you add in all your favorite products, and your wedding guests can buy it online for you. The other service, which was launched during the first lockdown, is kind of a luxury gifting service for all occasions. So we have everything from timeless favorites like cakes, florals, charcuterie boards, to experiences, to dining, spa experiences, all of that. So that took off very quickly because, like how I was saying before, that wasn't anything too novel. We were just doing something that was already being done, which was just gifting, but with a slight twist. So that really caught on.
What have you done now that is uniquely different to the rest?
I think the experiences have been very different because you don't get a ton of that in Sri Lanka, or you do get it, but it hadn't been really curated and put together in one easy to use platform before.
That's awesome. I think what you've done, Yanika, is phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what next steps that you're taking. And I also like to watch, like, as you're speaking, there's a moment that there's a turn on in your mind. I can see from your eyes, like there's a moment that you're just like, okay, talk about the business. You just, okay, boom. And then you're listing out all of this stuff. And it comes, I can tell with like, as you keep doing it over and over and over and over again, it's just like second nature for you. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this has been awesome. How do people find out more about your business and what you're up to?
www.silverisle.com.
The .com.
The .com. We've honestly had to compromise a lot for the .com. So
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That I would definitely take that as a piece of advice. Don't be fixated on the name. To see what's available.
Yeah, like honestly, that's not a very glamorous thing to know, but that's the truth of it. Every URL you can imagine is going to be taken.
That's fair. Well, dude, thank you. This has been amazing.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I can't wait to catch up with you once you make it up to the next list. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.